In the midst of sorrow, you can see her friends looking down. A light of day to sorrow will bring. Oh, you hear the voice of freedom, telling you this can't be down. No matter how hard reality seems, just hold on to your dreams, yeah.
Yes, you can win as long as you keep your head to the sky. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and chief national political analyst for KBLA Talk 1580, where we are more than just talk. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DrNii. Quartelai. Pro tip, type in Dr. Nee, DrNii, and boom, bam, boom. There I am for your listening pleasure. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580 and like magic. There we are. And last but not least, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA Talk 1580. Subscribe to that podcast, and that way you'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. We'll be with you wherever you go. And hopefully one of the places that you're going today is to the polls. It is election day in right here in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., hence why I'm wearing the I voted sticker. I have my vote by mail ballot right here and intend to drop it off right after the show. But it's not just D.C. holding elections today. We know that that Montana, their Democratic presidential primary is happening today, as is the New Jersey Democratic presidential primary and the New Mexico Democratic presidential primary, as well as South Dakota's Democratic presidential primary. And so be sure to make your voice heard. There's a lot of issues of consequence afoot right here in the United States and abroad. Don't allow your vote to go without being counted. Make your vote count. Make your voice count. And I will certainly be doing the same. Now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, NPR is reporting that Biden's new executive order denies asylum claims to most migrants crossing the border unlawfully. President Joe Biden today took executive action to temporarily suspend the processing of most asylum claims at the southern U.S. border when the 7-day average of unauthorized crossings exceeds 2,500. The president said he's taking action to, quote, gain control of the border after years of high numbers of irregular crossings. Senior administration officials told reporters that the measure would take effect immediately. We want to remind you that under this order, migrants who cross without authorization, absent exceptional circumstances, would not be eligible for asylum. Senior administration officials said they expect to remove these individuals in a matter of days, if not hours. And so I know one of the questions that comes to mind for me is, if indeed asylum is an international human right, what does this mean in terms of the United States being a nation that respects international human rights? And so we will soon have Alan Orr joining us on the show. He is immigration attorney and an expert on all things related to immigration policy. We will have him on in short order to help us make sense out of all of this. But some major news that promises to, play out during the presidential primary for sure. We know how Republicans have really stonewalled President Biden's efforts at any legislative action related to immigration reform. But again, we'll have Alan Orr, our resident immigration expert, on the show in short order to help us make sense out of that. Staying with Biden news for a moment, we're going to transition from the president to Hunter Biden. His trial is underway. And what do we know now? We know that the jury has had a chance to see the messages about using and buying drugs in his gun case. The first witness started her testimony in Hunter Biden's felony gun trial, kicking off the presentation of evidence in the historic case featuring the first criminal charges against a president's child. Special Agent Erica Jensen testified about messages and other data from Hunter Biden's now infamous laptop, which has sparked years and years of controversy. USA Today is reporting that Hunter Biden faces 3 felonies over whether he lied on a federal gun form in 2018 that asked if he was addicted to drugs. On Monday, a jury of 12 was seated in the federal courthouse in Wilmington. Biden's relatives, his wife, sister, and First Lady Jill Biden attended the jury selection on Monday and the opening arguments that his lawyers and prosecutors presented just today. And so we will all continue to follow details related to that case. But moving out of Washington for a moment to Wisconsin, where the Attorney General, Josh Kaul, charges Kenneth Chesebro and other Trump aides in the fake elector scheme. Yeah, this story still has not resolved itself. Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul has filed felony forgery charges against an aide and 2 attorneys who worked for former President Donald Trump in 2020 for their part in designing and executing a plan to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election by submitting a false slate of electors for guess who? Former President Trump. The charges are the first to be filed by state prosecutors against anyone involved in the scheme that involved 10 Wisconsin Republicans meeting in the state capitol in December 2020 to sign paperwork falsely claiming to be electors for Trump despite Trump's loss to Biden. The Attorney General filed the charges in Dane County Circuit Court against Kenneth Chesebro, a Wisconsin native and lead architect of the 2020 fake elector plan. Former Dane County Judge Jim Thorpus, who represented Trump in Wisconsin during the 2020 election, and Mike Roman, a former Trump aide who allegedly delivered Wisconsin's slate of false elector paperwork to a Pennsylvania congressman's staffer in order to get them to Vice President Mike Pence on January 6, 2021. So again, this didn't just happen, folks. This was orchestrated. There were people that were deeply invested in misleading the public and misrepresenting the voices of the people of Wisconsin and outright trying to steal an election. Let's just call it what it is. And so here we are years later, and it looks like the Attorney General in Wisconsin is looking to hold them accountable. And speaking of holding people accountable, folks who seem to skirt accountability, Anthony Fauci says that Marjorie Taylor Greene drove death threats against him. The Guardian is reporting that after Anthony Fauci appeared at a contentious U.S. House of Representatives hearing on Monday, the former top public health official who led the nation's response to COVID-19 singled out the far-right Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Fox News as drivers of the, quote, credible death threats that he described to lawmakers. The ex-director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases then alluded to how Georgia's conspiracy theorist, Republican Congresswoman, assailed him during his testimony on Monday, telling CNN's host Caitlin Collins, quote, when you have performances like that unusual performance by Marjorie Taylor Greene in Tuesday's hearing, those are the kinds of things that drive up the death threats, because there's a segment of the population out there that believes this kind of nonsense. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Margarine Taylor Greene, Migraine Taylor Greene. There are lots of names out there for the Congresswoman, but make no mistake about it. Her actions are actually driving death threats to Anthony Fauci. And where's the accountability there? I don't know. Last but not least, in Louisiana legislature passes surgical castration law for sex offenders. That's right. Louisiana judges could order surgical castration for people convicted of sex crimes against young children under legislation approved just this past Monday. And if the Republican governor, Jeff Landry, signs it into law, the state apparently would be the first with such a punishment. The Republican-controlled state legislature passed the bill, giving judges the option to sentence someone to surgical castration after the person's been convicted of certain aggravated sex crimes, including rape, incest, and molestation against a child under the age of 13. A handful of states, including California, Florida, and Texas, have laws in place allowing for chemical castration. In some of those states, offenders can opt for the surgical procedure if they prefer, but the National Conference of State Legislatures said it was unaware of any states that allow judges to impose surgical castration. How about that? Well, when we come forward, we are switching gears, and we are really delighted to welcome my friend, Jeffrey Wallace. He's the president and CEO of Leaders Up, and he is on a mission to change business as usual when it comes to creating opportunity for youth and practicing anti-racism in supplier diversity. Yeah, we're going to learn all about that and more when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley here. We're getting closer to June 18th, and time is running out for you to register to join us for our historic symposium live on C-SPAN, Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com right now if you want to be in the audience when the nation will see for the first time ever a stage full of brilliant Black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's all going down. Well, it's actually all going up. Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. live from the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Again, admission is free, but we're filling up fast. So if I were you, I would log on right now to KBLA1580.com to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's only a few days left for open enrollment, starting at $0 a month. LA Care Covered offers the benefits you need to achieve your health goals. $0 preventive services, 24/7 virtual care and nurse advice lines, walk-in minute clinics, free fitness and nutrition classes, and more. Become a member of LA's most affordable health plan. Get a free instant quote at lacarecovered.org. Have open enrollment questions? Connect with us today at 855-222-4239. Find your affordable path to wellness with LA Care Covered today.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties. Classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk. We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't play.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I'm really delighted to welcome to the show for the first time Jeffrey Wallace. He is the president and CEO of Leaders Up, which is a mission-driven organization with clear purpose for addressing the racial wealth gap and creating opportunities for young people, a young, diverse talent pipeline in America. Welcome, Jeffrey.
It's so great to see you again, Q, and thank you for having me on A More Perfect Union. I'm excited to join you in dialogue.
Well, it's exciting to have you here, and what a day to have you here. I mean, there's so much afoot in the news, and I wanted to get your quick take on an issue that we certainly have been tracking here on the show, and we'll continue to track with other experts. But just this week, a grant program for Black women business owners has been called discriminatory based on an appeals court ruling. A U.S. federal court of appeals panel suspended a venture capital firm's grant program for Black women business owners, ruling that a conservative group is likely to prevail in its lawsuit, claiming that the program is discriminatory. For the folks that don't know, the ruling against the Atlanta-based Fearless Fund, it's another victory for conservative groups waging a sprawling legal battle against corporate diversity programs that have targeted dozens of companies and government institutions. I know so many of the folks that may be impacted by this, and so many people in the orbit of Leaders Up that may be impacted by this, probably has this issue top of mind for you. Jeffrey, what's your reaction?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're doing is really stifling inclusive growth. When we think about how small businesses and then therefore the subset of those minority-owned businesses, if they had access to the capital necessary to continue to grow, you know, a report a decade ago by the Minority Business Development Agency said that they would gross over 2.5 trillion in receipts and generate jobs for 16.1 million workers. So when we think about, you know, the tight rein that, you know, the financial sector has over traditional lending opportunities for businesses, and then also the opportunity for these businesses to grow, not just in the private sector, but through public-private partnerships. We also understand that access to capital, whether that's revolving, you know, credit or just capital to fuel growth, helps individuals go after and businesses go after public sector contracts that usually have delayed accounts receivables and payments that goes from 3 to 6 months. So this is really, you know, a reflection of what I'm calling Jim Crow 4.0, because now it's Jim Crow and partners that are, you know, litigating the landscape to ensure that we continue to fuel capitalistic greed rather than ensuring that America facilitates a more just and inclusive economy.
Jim Crow 4.0, you ain't said nothing but a word. You know, Jeffrey, this legal effort to dismantle workplace diversity programs, this isn't new. You know, when the 8A program that's set up by the SBA, when that was created, there were folks that wanted to go after that. Folks have long had their sights set on affirmative action, have long had their sights set on gender equality, for example. And so people going after workplace diversity, that's nothing new. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you went straight to the inclusive growth piece, right? And if the United States is to be competitive as a superpower in the world, right, we can't afford to have any segment of our population on the sidelines. And for any reason, it can't be just because we don't like them, right? You know, that's not going to make our economy strong. That's not going to make our democracy strong. And so, you know, talk to us a little bit about the work of Leaders Up and how you all have been pressing forward in spite of some of these headwinds that would, you know, seek to stop the progress that you're making with regard to your mission.
Well, absolutely. So Leaders Up is committed to changing how America works, and ensuring that we're leveraging, amplifying, including the radical imagination of young adults to really transform systems of hurt and harm into systems of healing and empowerment. And we look across our economy, the workforce development space, youth development. We've seen historically that young people of color have been marginalized from opportunities. And to be frank, you can't program your way out of policy. So we're shrewdly focused on ensuring that, as we evolve in the economy, there's a couple things. One, how can we restore or actually integrate some new corporate values across the organization, across our economy, where America is committed to normalizing safety for our talent, whether that's psychological, emotional, physical safety, making sure that we're making opportunity equitable, where individuals have a clear line of sight towards, career pathways that are in high growth emerging sectors, and that they have the skills to compete in the agency of choice. And last but not least, and I think this is a hard one of what we're seeing right now in this litigious environment around diversity, equity, inclusion, is sharing power. And sharing power, I think, starts with namely treating everyone with dignity and respect. Historically, America has not treated people of color with the respect and the dignity that is worthy of and aligned with their contributions to this economy. We would not be who we are as a global power if we did not have the ancestors of my ancestors as a descendant of those enslaved, the indigenous people, our Latinx community, investing in America being the best that it can. So we are fundamentally committed to changing how America works. And we know that to do that, we must organize a group of like-minded policymakers, community-based organization leaders, system leaders that get that the crux of our competitiveness and success in the future are ensuring that communities that have been historically marginalized in our economy are moved to the middle of our economy.
We have a couple minutes until our next break, Jeffrey. So I want to ask you about this, the future of America. And, a lot of elected officials have talked about, whatever nation sort of leads in the clean energy revolution will lead the world. And I don't know if you saw today, but NBC News reported that the all-electric commitment that was made will now play out over decades, according to the GM CEO, really saying that the automaker's plan to turn its fleet 100% electric will now play out over decades. Talk to us about what opportunity this presents, particularly for young people, folks that are getting ready to go off to either a four-year college or university, or go off to a community college to learn a trade. Talk to us about the opportunity here so we don't miss it.
Well, against the backdrop of climate change, which we know is real and that science has proven is real, it's important that, young people that particularly live in low socioeconomic communities that are fighting for, a clean environment to live in, take advantage of the green economy and the blue economy. California is shifting to not even sell gas-powered vehicles, gasoline-powered vehicles by 2035. So although, the national fleet of GM is not moving in this direction, it's important to understand that California is. And with that being one of the top largest economies in the nation, there's going to be a presence of a tremendous amount of opportunity across not just the electrical vehicle sector in manufacturing and designing new vehicles, but also just in an infrastructure. As we're investing federally in infrastructure across the nation, we're transforming gas stations into charging stations. And I think it's important that we recognize that, the environmental justice field has now transformed into an industry that is powered by multiple different sectors, whether that's utilities, whether that's, planning and design, architecture, innovation as relates to mobility. These are all opportunities for young people that care about not just Earth, but the community that they live in and the built environment, really having the opportunities to live in a clean space, that they also go after getting the skills and going after the career pathways that are being presented by this emerging and growing economy.
That's great. That's great. That's great. I mean, look, this is work that's not for the faint of heart, but it is the work that really will lead the future. And speaking of somebody who is leading the future starting right now, when we come forward more with Jeffrey Wallace, he is the president and CEO of Leaders Up. And we want to learn a little bit more about Jeffrey as a change maker. We've been talking a lot about the change afoot that's being led by Leaders Up and the coalition of folks they've been working with, but we want to learn a little bit more about the leader that is making quite a difference across the country and a powerful demonstration for the world. More with Jeffrey Wallace when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and delighted to be in conversation with my friend Jeffrey Wallace. He is the president and CEO of Leaders Up. For those folks who don't know about Leaders Up, you should know that they are not new to this, they are true to this. They just celebrated a decade's worth of work, a decade and counting, I should say. Tell us a little bit about the celebration that you just had, marking this major milestone that not every organization sees.
Yeah, it was a tremendous opportunity for us to not just celebrate, 10 years of connecting over 60,000 young people to employment and generating over $1 billion in economic return. And partnering with a number, about 200 plus companies and organizations to do so, but more so importantly, to put a stake in the ground as it relates to our vision around changing how America works and really advancing a more inclusive, just, and anti-racist economy that works for all. I'm proud to have founded the organization, incubated and launched by Starbucks. But what I'm most excited about, Dr. Quartey, is being able to really add to and supercharge a movement that is really focused on economic justice, inclusion, ensuring that we start to unravel and undo some of the systemic and structural racism that is connected and embedded into our economy and how we operate. It's so deep within America's economy that it's almost the DNA. So there's some, grafting of new cells that we need to put in place in order to really ensure that everyone has the opportunity and the resources and support to maximize their potential, particularly young people of color who will be and are the future of our economy and the linchpin of America continuing to be a global economic power.
I mean, I love so much about the work that you do through Leaders Up, and this, which is a continuation of some of the work that you did way back when at the Los Angeles Urban League. You have been committed to economic justice for a very long time. And, when you talk about supercharging economic growth, centering the folks that are too often left out, I think your work really speaks for itself. And so this is what you've done over the course of the last 10 years. I can only imagine what you all are cooking up for the next 10 years. Just give us a taste. And for anybody who doesn't know, Jeffrey is actually one of the best cooks that I know. So when you ask him what he's cooking up, that is a very specific question. Jeffrey, what are y'all cooking up for the next 10 years?
Well, we're really ensuring that, number one, that we are centering the radical imagination of young people. And you've heard me say that a couple of times. When we think historically about any seismic or systemic change that has happened across society, those movements have been fueled by young people, whether that's the civil rights movement, the LGBTQAI movement currently, the feminist movement. There are young people that are challenging the status quo. So when we think about now at Leaders Up, how we're going to drive systemic change that transforms the conditions for individuals to really maximize their potential. We're centering young adults, their needs, their lived experience and expectations, and leveraging that to shift narratives around our economy, inclusion, things like apprenticeships and access to opportunity. We're innovating with young adults cross-sectorally, so ensuring that we're designing solutions that generate value for them across their entire spectrum of economic empowerment, but also generating value for the education and workforce development system and industry at the same time. And last but not least, we're building a movement. We understand that Leaders Up is not the panacea. And in order to really drive systemic change, we must organize folks around shared values, shared ideals, and most importantly, policies that are going to ensure that young people not just have a fair shot, but a guaranteed shot at building generational wealth. And that is something that I think is consequentially important for America as we continue to grow and evolve out of our nascent state, quite frankly, as a country, into one that is formidable and is built to last.
Now, you all are also participating in the Equity March that is coming up. It's a whole week of events and engagements being organized by the National Black Justice Coalition, our friend, our brother, Dr. David Johns, and so many other organizations that are a part of that. Talk to us about what role Leaders Up intends to play with that Equity Week happening here in the nation's capital.
Yeah, so Leaders Up is really, spreading our wings and ensuring that we're supporting movements and organizations that are advancing federal level policy as well as national advocacy. The Equity March is a signature effort by a number of different organizations, but is also led by our dear brother, Dr. Marcus Hunter, who has been a champion around advancing radical reparations and ensuring that communities that have historically been harmed by America have some resolve, and that resolve not just being around financial reparations, but a whole policy agenda that transforms conditions and systems. So the Equity March is I would say, the tip of the iceberg around the work that needs to be done, but it's also an opportunity for us to organize at a national scale to demonstrate a concerted national focus and movement around advancing reparations, and most importantly, to call to the attention of policymakers at the federal level that this is a critical next step in American history that must be taken in order to, undo the harm and start to operationalize a commitment to reconciliation. Part of being great, as Jim Collins says, step one is facing the brutal facts in order for you to move from good to great. And the brutal facts of America is that everyone has not had the opportunity to experience the American dream. Quite frankly, for many communities, it's been an American nightmare. So how are we ensuring now, through the framework of reparations, that we have a policy package, we have programs and practices that really advance equitable opportunity for all, and we're honored to participate and contribute and leverage this event as a catalyst, and I think that a catalyst that can be to advance watershed policy and other actions to start to heal communities that have been historically harmed.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to that. We're looking forward to having Dr. Hunter on this show coming up ahead of the Equity March to unpack so much of what you just shared with us there. But before we let you go, we just got to ask you, a little bit about your story as a change maker. I know quite a bit about your story, but for our leaders, learners, and listeners, what advice would you offer young leaders out there that are aiming to meet the moment, but do so in a way that they get to leverage their own talents? I know that's been a journey for you, and we're seeing you on this side of it, but for folks on the other side of it, what's your advice?
Couple points. I would say, number one, stay curious. I think the key to my success is I'm a lifetime learner. I always want to understand the why and the how things are operating. And that goes with having a little bit of, or a lot of humility, of understanding that, if you're the smartest person in the room, you probably should get into another room so that you can learn from other folks and sharpen yourself as you're sharpening others. I think also stay committed and authentic to who you are. I think one of the things that has made my journey so impactful for myself, my family, friends, and community around is that, I'm consistent in who Jeff is. And most importantly, that who Jeff is baked into the values of just treating folks with dignity and respect, being able to ensure that we also operate with what I think is a superpower, particularly for people of color, but for human beings in general, is just emotional intelligence, understanding, how to be aware of yourself, regulate yourself, be aware of the impact that you make socially, and also, how to wield that power in a way. Because as you are moving through the world, particularly as a leader and person of color, you're always faced with the implicit or explicit headwind of racism, and it is triggering. I think Elder James Baldwin said to be conscious in America is to be a constant state of rage for African Americans. So the way that you transform that rage into, something that is powerful and consequential is owning that and converting that into a power that is going to be transformative, and not just for you, but for the folks that you love and care for around the community.
Well, thank you for that word on a Tuesday. You get a word any day of the week from Jeffrey Wallace. Tuesday. We thank you for your work, for your activism, for everything you do to push this movement forward. We are here talking about Leaders Up, but we know that Leaders Up is the sum of many parts. It's the sum of so many people over the course of the past decade that have poured into a vision. And we got to also give Starbucks their prop for incubating this social enterprise. We hope that they rinse and repeat and keep doing that.
Exactly.
And we hope that you keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you for the time. It's so great to join you. I'm so proud of the work that you lead across multiple spaces, Dr. Quartey, and most importantly, proud to call you friend in this work, because I experience love unconditionally from you, your community, and not just emotional love, but bell hooks love, a commitment to growth and us evolving spiritually together. So I appreciate you making space and inviting me onto a more perfect union.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I always want to be in the company of bell hooks and in your company as well. When we come forward, more here on A More Perfect Union. In fact, it's time for the quiet part out loud. More after this.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Oh, who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off of Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's time for the quiet part out loud. NBC News is reporting that Biden says every reason to believe Netanyahu is prolonging war for political gain. That's right. President Joe Biden said in a recent interview released today that there is, quote, every reason to think Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is prolonging Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza for political gain. The comment came in an interview conducted by Time magazine on May 28th when Biden was asked if he believes Netanyahu is prolonging the conflict for self-preservation, as some in Israel have said. And the president said, quotes, I'm not going to comment on that. There is every reason for people to draw that conclusion. He went on to say that so it's an internal domestic debate that seems to have no consequence. And whether he would change his position or not, it's hard to say, but it has not been helpful. Biden explained that his major disagreement with the Israeli prime minister is over Gaza's future after the war ends. When asked if Netanyahu was the only one standing in the way of a package of proposals that might aid in transitioning to a two-state solution, Biden said he had to be careful about what he told Time because he acknowledged the magazine's article would come out later on, and he was already in the process of negotiating a possible path forward. Those are pretty serious words coming from the president of the United States. And, this could signal a very big, plot twist coming down the pike. We know that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accepted an invitation to speak before a joint session of Congress that's coming up in the coming weeks. Hopefully, he'll be sharing, that there is acceptance in moving forward with the proposal. But, a lot of people say don't hold your breath. It's important that for all the folks that are out there that have been calling for a ceasefire, for a lot of folks that want to see peace, that want to see an end to this war, it's important that folks make their voices heard. It's important that people lift their voices. It's one thing to put pressure on the president, to, halt sending any military weapons and equipment to Israel. It's another thing to say, okay, folks, we have a proposal on the table that supposedly, has come with some support from the Israelis, right? Where's the pressure to get all the parties at the table to accept this proposal? If this proposal means the end of this war that has taken far too many lives, I don't know about you, but there seems to be a bit of a deafening silence on the streets in terms of turning up the heat and putting pressure on people in positions of power to move forward with this deal. We saw some activists in Israel in the past few days doing exactly that. But in my view, I don't think we've seen nearly enough of it. And I don't know about you, but I hope that part changes and changes quick and fast. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
A safe place to go loud. Place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Diego.
Hi, Diego. It's Jennifer Coolidge. I just want to say your cashback match makes me feel so special. It really inspired me.
That's great. Doubling the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year is what we do.
Well, I'm doubling everything now. Double dating, double dipping, double feature, double header, double whammy. Basically double or nothing.
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here. Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
You've been listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and let me finish with this. As pharmacies shutter, some Western states, Black and Latino communities are left behind. The Associated Press is reporting that opening stores used to mean everything to pharmacy chains, but CVS Health once boasted of opening or buying more than 2,900 locations in a 5-year period, but now it's shuttering hundreds, while Walgreens, Rite Aid, and independent drugstores are also pulling back. An industry that saw waves of store growth before the COVID-19 pandemic face headwinds like falling prescription reimbursement, persistent theft, and changing shopping habits. But as drugstores right-size their physical footprint, experts say that they can leave behind communities that have come to depend on them as trusted sources of care and advice, both of which can be hard to find in many urban and rural areas. You see, there's a pattern to who has access to pharmacies, with gaps forming in urban and rural areas. Residents of neighborhoods that are largely Black and Latino have fewer pharmacies per capita than people who live in mostly white neighborhoods. This is according to an Associated Press analysis of licensing data from 44 states, data from the National Council for Prescription Drug Programs, and the American Community Survey. It's consistent with prior research that documents where urban pharmacy deserts are more likely to be concentrated. And so as folks prepare to go to the polls, not just in November, but as I mentioned at the top of the show, there's an election today in places like New Jersey and Montana and our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C. I have my ballot right here, which I'm going to drop off right after the show. It is important that we send folks to our city councils, that we elect mayors, that we elect people that recognize that they too play an outsized role in creating an environment where all of our businesses can thrive, including our pharmacies. Because you take away these pharmacies that are already scarce in Black and Latino neighborhoods, and we may compound some of the challenges that already exist. And so at the very least, let's all do our part to cast our votes for people that we can believe in, people who have a plan to create more access and not less. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the Village helps us produce a More Perfect Union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer extraordinaire, Miles Lowe, our show producer, Robert Battles, and our podcast publishing guru, that's what I call him, Odell Bodie. Also, thanks to all of our leaders, learners, and listeners. We curate this show for you. And also special thanks to Jeffrey Wallace of Leaders Up for being my special guest today. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and you've been listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.